relaxed and cheery as I'm retiring in a few days. But I also have had the real pleasure over the last few years of working with the CEC team around the Careers Hub. So I got involved probably 3 or so years ago when we were originally down bidding for the Careers Hub, trying to get the money for it, trying to get it set up. And actually it has grown and thrived and is doing such a great job that we were just really keen that head teachers really do know what they do and how it affects you actually, and why you need to know what the Careers Hub is about and how it can support your school, support your students, and support you with the, the dreaded Ofsted word in there somewhere. And the other thing I would say there is I hope by the end of this 30 minutes that we will all be a little bit more expert on some of the terminology. Those of you still thinking that Gatsby is something to do with F. Scott Fitzgerald are, going to be a little clearer and be able to use in your more everyday language about your school some of those Gatsby terms and why they're relevant. So I'm not going to speak for any longer. I'm going to hand over to Andrew Wakefield, who is one of the CC National number of regional leads. He'll tell you what he does, but I've had the pleasure of working with him on a number of occasions. Very experienced, knows a lot about our role and how it all fits together. So Andrew, we've allocated you 7 minutes. I will be tracking you down and giving you a hard time if you haven't finished at the end of that. So can I hand over to Andrew Webster? Thanks, Andrew.
Debbie, thank you ever so much for that very warm welcome, and great to be joining you this afternoon. Lovely to see you again, and thanks ever so much for the invitation in. So I'll be very tight on my time. I've got a few slides, which I think, Debbie, you have the slides. Is that right? There we go. Okay, so very brief introduction. Andrew Webster, I'm an area education manager within Careers Enterprise Company. I work with a team of other colleagues that provide specialist educational support. Thanks for the overview, Debbie, as well, about Careers Enterprise Company's role, which is predominantly in the space of supporting careers leaders across England, in a range of ways through resources and training and upskilling and development. But we know a careers leader can only be supported if the wraparound support is also in place as well. So we're doing a lot of work with head teachers as yourselves, principals and other leadership teams. So if we can move on to the next slide, Debbie, thank you. So just in terms of a context setting, I thought it was important to sort of start with, the why. Really, a lot of this work is underway and is in train. So if we go back to 2017, the government launched its National Career Strategy. It's only 4 years ago now. And on the back of that, subsequent statutory guidance for schools and colleges about implementing some of those sort of statutory duties. And there's a key call out in that initial careers leader sort of paper around the implementation and creation of this careers leader role. So this builds upon the work of Sir John Holman and the great work he did around good careers guidance and what constitutes that in schools and colleges, which led to the creation of the Gatsby Benchmark framework. And it is a framework that supports good careers education and guidance within a school. So the career strategy made a big deal of that, and very importantly talked about the creation of a careers leader role. So the last few years, the work that we've been doing as an organisation is to really support institutions like yourselves and others across England to create and drive the careers leadership and careers leader role forward. So bringing us up to date, obviously earlier this year, the Skills for Jobs white paper came out, which was initially billed as a further education, an FE white paper. But we know alongside the very, very key messages for that sector, there are some very important messages about careers guidance for young people within schools and colleges and other provision too. And excitingly for us and others, such as Debbie as well, I know very passionate about this area of activity within school. There was some very strong messaging within the white paper. I know it only amounts to a few pages, specifically around careers education and guidance, but there's some very powerful statements made. And I think the intent in the white paper was around building upon the great work that the career strategy set up. So the careers hubs, the model of careers hubs that I know are operating really, really well locally for you in that particular area. That's something that the Department for Education want to see rolled out now across England, and we're well underway of getting that rollout in place. Alongside that, the careers leader role, so much more support going into that careers leader role in terms of training and expansion of support as well, recognising that careers leaders are at different stages and needing different levels of support. But very excitedly for us as well, there was a real drive to sort of get careers built into the teaching standards and the teaching frameworks, from initial teacher up through to leadership levels 2. So really looking at how we can equip every teacher, every lecturer to be a careers teacher. And I use that language sort of loosely around not experts, but recognising that everybody has a part to play in a young person's career journey. Every teacher has a role to play, and that does play that role already. So it's just making sure that that's built into that professional development. Alongside that, the white paper gave some very strong messages also about the Baker Clause. So I know you'll all be very well familiar with the Baker Clause, but there will be further guidance coming out from the department about implementing the Baker Clause. And I think there's particular messaging around well, they've used the term DFE term around enforcement of that. So that's something we'll wait and see what the DFE say about it. But just recognising the Baker Clause is very, very important in terms of that open access. Also, a very, very strong message around a thematic review of careers education and guidance as well from Ofsted. So that will be coming at some point. We don't know when, but alongside the Ofsted inspections that we know now make reference to careers through the personal development and thematic aspect. And we know there's a lot of work underway that we work closely with Ofsted around that and supporting institutions to meet their requirements. The thematic review is hotly anticipated. The last thematic review that took place a number of years ago led to the career strategy and Sir John Holman's work around Gatsby benchmarks. So that's a very significant activity across schools and colleges at a date to be confirmed, but that was announced through the white paper. If I could just move on, Debbie, I'm just conscious of my minutes ticking away. This is just the final slide I have to share with you. So I wanted to leave it with some key messages, really, and we know you get a lot of this. And obviously I'd want to take a moment to sort of pay tribute to the great work that you're doing in these really challenging times. And we know that, and we hope that the work that happens through careers education advice and guidance supports the messaging you're trying to send to your young people about hope and about aspiration and about options and possibilities. So I think what we do know is that young people are, joining the workforce at a very uncertain time. I was hearing just the other day, I think 60% of job losses that are affecting the workforce on the back of the pandemic will fall heavily under those under 24 years of age. So it's a global pandemic, but it's having massive ramifications for young people's options and choices. We also know alongside this, the workforce is changing and operational needs within organisations are changing. Automation, the fourth industrial revolution, AI, nanotechnology, all these really exciting developments are meaning that it's a very fluid arrangement around what skills are needed and what the requirements of the future workforce are. So I think, as I'm saying under points 2 and 3, this is the message of why. It's equipping young people to cope with the future workforce. And this isn't always in terms of specific careers advice around a specific careers area. It's building up their tenacity, their resilience, their grit, determination to cope with a very, very fluid workforce that will no doubt require lots and chops and changes in terms of their working opportunities and their work options. So I think when we talk about careers education advice and guidance, we talk about the wraparound support that it provides in terms of direction, but also skills in terms of what young people need to sort of cope with the changing demands of the workforce. And I think, as I've mentioned, hopefully through this brief presentation, this requirement around high quality careers and guidance, I didn't want to use this time with you to overly state the Ofsted aspect of this and the statutory guidance aspect, because I know you have a lot of requirements on your plate. But hopefully the message has come through about the importance of careers education advice and guidance in terms of the why it's crucial for them at this particular stage, what they're entering in terms of the workforce, but also the turbulence that they've been through as learners. And I know they are still going through and will go through for a number of years. And just finally, recognising how crucial your role is as educational leaders. We are doing more specific work with you and trying to communicate with you as well. And we are and have recently launched an education leaders bulletin alongside our careers leader bulletin. And I've just popped a note into the chat. If you'd like to register for that and receive a direct communication to you as an educational leader, please do sign up and register and get some of that messaging that we're trying to ensure meets your particular requirements. Okay, Debbie, I am done rattling through that. Very happy to take questions or happy to leave it there.
Great, thank you, Andrew. And we hope to have a few minutes left if we run this as well as we hope to have some questions at the end. But likewise, if you drop questions into the chat, you can be absolutely sure they'll get to Andrew and you will get responses from them. So that was the kind of big picture. So Andrew was giving us a sense of how it all works at a national level, what the rationale was behind it, why these have happened. We want to now spend our next 7-minute session talking about who is our central team of support and what they are offering. So we've got Julie and Ruth from our Birmingham Careers Hub next. So can I hand over to you two for your 7-minute section? Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. And it's so great to see so many people on the call this afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us. And please, those of you who just joined us, if you could please sign in the chat so that we know who's here to make sure that we are circulating the information to everybody afterwards. Okay, I'm Julie Stirrup and I'm one of the Hub leads and I focus on the mainstream schools within the Hub. As this slide shows, Birmingham Careers Hub is centrally funded through the Careers and Enterprise Company, through government funding, but locally we are funded through Birmingham Education Partnership and the Greater Birmingham and Solihull LEP. So, and we sit within Birmingham Education Partnership, so having very much a local and national focus. So moving on, thanks, to the next slide, Mike. Yeah, so what we do then, just going very quickly through some of the aspects of our work, those 3 aspects of our work around building networks, predominantly linking schools to businesses to prepare young people for a successful future, and predominantly through matching schools to a volunteer and enterprise advisor who will support the school at that strategic level to plan and implement their careers programme. So within our networks, we have networks of schools, apart from linking schools to businesses, networks of schools to support the delivery against those benchmarks that Andrew alluded to, those standards of excellent careers provision. So we support schools within our networks, careers clinics, communities of practice, one-to-one meetings, as well as regular resources. Okay, moving on, Mike. Yes, so the hub model, this is to demonstrate quite a complex picture, and you'll be sent the slides afterwards to reflect on them. But as it says on the tin, it is a hub, and a hub that with young people very much at the centre of what we do, bringing together organisations for whom, developing skills and employability is a key objectives. And we help as a hub to join the dots, linking providers of careers opportunities, employers to the schools. And so many of our employers value the hub model as a framework for helping them to engage with schools. So many employers report it's so difficult sometimes to engage with schools, and we can provide the framework for them to link to the schools and the young people who will benefit and who need the support. And our hub also includes, as you'll see there, at about 2 o'clock on the dartboard, there's the cornerstone employers that are critical to our work, and they're employers with a strong track record of school engagement who support us with our hub objectives. And also, among our partners are the strategic partners, Combined Authority, the LEP, who have, are particularly interested in the whole careers and skills agenda, and along with some, head teachers locally are represented on our steering group, who oversee the work of the hub, who, as I say, oversee us and to whom we're accountable and to whom we report regularly on the progress that we're making against those Gatsby benchmarks, which will lead me into Ruth's bit, who's going to talk a bit about the compass returns. Thank you.
Thanks, Julie. So, afternoon, everyone. I'm the Careers Hub lead for the Birmingham Send Hub. Nice to meet you all. We just thought it would be useful to give you an overview of how we report and evaluate on the progress that we're making within the hub. This isn't a statutory requirement, but the schools that join the hub it is part of the agreement that they complete Compass once per term. And there is a reason for that. So it really is around driving progress and informing how we, manage the support that we offer to you as we move forward. So I just wanted to explain to you, obviously there's a model there for what would happen with the Compass data internally within your school, and that's a best practice model for driving improvement within the school. But the data that is generated by the Compass report is also reported on externally. So we collate the data ourselves as a hub team. We report that to the steering group every half a term. And if you just want to move on to the next slide, so we would report on the progress against all of the Gatsby benchmarks, and that's for the steering group as a whole to understand, where the difficulties are, where the progress is being made, and so that we can really think about how we support the schools to achieve all of the Gatsby benchmarks. And this is also, the data is also then goes through the hub to nationally to the Careers and Enterprise Company, and eventually to the DFE. So we are reporting nationally on your school data. That's it's anonymous, so they don't see the score. But if you could just go to the next slide, please, Mike. So nationally, obviously, as Andrew has alluded to, the data that's generated through the Compass report does inform strategy, national careers strategy in terms of careers education and guidance, and that has also informed just recently the Skills for Jobs white paper that Andrew told us about. So there is a national picture behind what we're asking schools to do in terms of evaluating their progress. And if you just move to the next slide, Mike, please. Obviously, we're talking about the benchmarks and progress against the benchmarks, but we're also interested in, what impact is this actually having, and that is the key for all of us, really. What difference is this making to our young people, to the local economy, to the skills gaps of the future, and this is a conversation that we really try to capture this and report this across the board. That's me done, Debbie. Thank you.
You two are superstars and really kept it to the 7 minutes. I'm starting to see questions appear, some of it linked to Compass. So again, if Ruth and Julie, you can be having a look at those through the next bits and then come back with some responses around those. One of the things about things like Compass and the fact that we do collect that anonymised data before we share it with anyone, it's also part of the target setting process that decides whether the Careers Hub is successful and can be funded again in the future. So it all kind of links in as to whether or not they're engaging with enough schools and moving progress on in enough of those Gatsby benchmarks. So there's a lot of useful things, and it's quite important as schools, you're helping the hub, and the hub will continue to help you by doing that bit of feeding back. And if again you don't know what your Compass benchmarks are, your Compass data, that's something that you'll go away hopefully and find out a bit more about after today's briefing. Okay, the last two sections, the last 7 minutes, are to head teachers, me and Dan, who are going to just talk a little bit about some of the things our careers programs have done, just to exemplify the sort of work that goes on around careers and the sort of thing we're talking about. We're not talking about really complex, big ideas, actually. Some of it is so simple, and I'm sure many of you are already doing lots of it. So the next 7 minutes, Dan's going to lead off, and then I'll follow on. Just a little bit of an example of the sorts of things that are happening in schools at the moment. And like I said, probably replicating what you've got going on in yours. So Dan, over to you first.
Thank you. Cheers. Thanks, Debbie. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, colleagues. Thanks for your time. And I think one of the things that's happened over the last couple of weeks, really, I've been chatting to a lot of head teachers around careers. And one of the things that came out from that was clearly that a couple of things. First of all, we're all absolutely rammed, we're all busy. and trying to prioritise that. I think in some cases it's often the careers leader and their time as well, and the complexities around COVID and the ability to get that into the higher levels of senior leadership can also be a challenge. And I think the final one that came out was the conversations of not realising just how much external support and free support effectively was there to actually come and support in the school as well. So hopefully again from today that will come. Again, only a few minutes from me, but I just wanted to pick up, and again, a huge amount of feedback from schools around what they're doing. So this is not what I'm doing. This is really collectively from the picture of head teachers around Birmingham that's been picked up. But we know the situation around COVID has produced these challenges. We've just heard Andrew talking there around that significant impact. And I was reviewing some external HE data today about the number of students at the moment trying to seek those job opportunities. And we've seen that pause on recruitment across the city and across the UK in the wake of COVID. So yeah, the obvious ones, the cancellation of physical work placements is pretty obvious, and a reduction in demand in some sectors. We have seen that, but actually there's been a huge amount of positives that have come out the back over the last 12 months. And initially, yes, as employers got to use the grips of being at home and those changes, but we've seen that rapid acceleration now. And the three things I wanted to pick up on was around the accessibility of employers. We've seen that rapidly increase over these 12 months. Employers working from home suddenly find that the challenge of getting to a school to come and meet with learners, especially getting into the city centre, is bypassed by suddenly being able to have that digital connectivity. We've seen a huge amount across the city of different employers wanting to come in and working alongside at a whole school level through assemblies and drop-down events, but actually into the curriculum. There's some really nice examples of where schools specifically have used, especially as part of Careers Week, and embedded those virtual meetings and the use of Teams and Zoom to bring employers into the classroom. And that's been fantastic to see that. And what also has come out from that is the role of longevity of those resources. Of course, we can record that content and reuse it and keep that and actually plug that via the website. And one of the other things that's come out is the role of alumni within that, and how people have gone out to their communities, out to their families, their parents, and said, okay, who've got these roles, where are people working, and how can we plug that in? We've also seen some really key role of international barriers as well, where we've got suddenly realised that with people working across the world from home, suddenly we can bring people in from all over the world into our schools. Thank you. If we could just move on one slide. So for me, really, if I was to take away two quick wins from today, it is around increasing those employer interactions. And I've kept that quote at the bottom, which I'm sure we're familiar with now for a little while from education and employers. We know the number of contact touch points between students and employers raises their opportunities and specifically lowers the chances of them being neat. So number one, rapidly increase those employer interactions, look at those opportunities of bringing the conference tools in and actually being able to host those evenings, host those afternoons, and specifically utilise your resources within your curriculum area. I've mentioned alumni, parents and community. We've got that wealth of people out there, and we've seen that, and we've seen a diversification in those roles over the last 12 months, and we've seen people take completely different directions and fill those different ones, and the role and importance especially of our public sector and key workers. It's a really nice opportunity again to bring those into the school virtually as well. Think international, use the careers webinars that are available. We've been working very closely, obviously, with Teams. Most of us are using Teams now, and some of you may be using the Teams live function. And again, I'm happy to offer training out for that and support, and a lot of schools are using that, or Google, to host live events and Q&A webinars. And there's certainly a huge amount of expertise across the city with that. And as I say, we're also seeing from the major employers now is these virtual work placements, and then suddenly it opens up the access. Rather than a few students getting these exclusive placements, they can increase it. And we've seen that with the medical, dentistry and veterinary, that suddenly a large amount of students can access areas they might not have considered before or may not have been eligible to get the physical work placement. So that was just my quick summary there, please, Debbie.
Thanks very much. And I'm going to just follow on from this, and then I'll lead us into the last little bit. So if you're not Gatsby, ready yet, Dan's slides were talking about employer engagement, which is 5, experience of workplaces, which is Gatsby 6, and how you link your curriculum learning to careers, which is Gatsby 4. And I do think COVID has opened up so many opportunities to that. I just want to talk about another couple of Gatsbys, and I want to just talk about this point that's come up a few times actually, that our students themselves are reflecting that COVID is making them worry about their career path. You know, they were thinking about going into hospitality and now are saying, is this going to be sensible? Is it something that isn't going to be there? Retail is another one where people are really rethinking. And I think if you can move the slide on for me. Thank you. That's Gatsby 2, and that's about students learning about the labour market and understanding it and adapting and thinking. And so actually the fact that they're raising those questions starts to become for us part of our evidence that they are aware of careers in the labour market. And now they need a bit more reassurance. We need to do something with them to help them think, yeah, they're doing the right thing. So they are listening to stuff in the press. They are seeing those unemployment figures that Dan and Andrew talked about, and they are worrying. And but they're also, you know, pragmatically understanding that when they are making their post-16 choices or their year 9 choices, that actually they're probably not closing the door to lots of careers. Most career pathways actually will continue to accept quite a flexible number of subjects. I mean, you know, there will be the medicines where if you haven't done chemistry, you're going to be stuck. But for many others, encouraging them to understand that they have lots of routes still available to them is important. I'll jump through a couple of these, but I do think we need to be really aware of our student bodies. My school has an awful lot of people, premium students and parents who won't have gone on to any education past the age of 16, and actually helping them understand that is quite important. We do a really strong, you know, careers program every year, but what you realise, and particularly what you realise through this COVID period, is how much they've just forgotten. You know, year 11 have been at home for 6 months last year and another few months this year, and those things have just drifted away from them. If we just move on to the next slide. So that is where Gatsby 3 comes in, which is about how you address the needs of every pupil. And there would have been a model at one time that was all about a single careers interview, and, you know, you make sure everybody gets, you know, some very focused advice. But actually, what COVID has done for us, and we, like Dan, will be picking up programs that will keep forever out of this, is we've been able to run a really good, flexible after-school careers program that is optional. They choose to attend, but there are different sessions. They could be very generic about how to use some careers tools, or they could be very focused about different sorts of careers. We used our pastoral team to make sure they were being really well signposted and directed, and attendance of them actually has been really good, averaged about 50%, but that's across different types where some are appropriate to everyone. And because they've been doing them quite often at home, we've been able to get family members and saying, you know, it's fine for your mum to come listen with you. So it's been something that just has taken careers past them into something bigger. Our SEND students had some more individual support to make sure that worked. But you can see through that by that delivering that sort of program, we could do it in a way that was so much more effective than when we've got to put them all in an assembly and, you know, talk to them all at the same time. Or so COVID has given us some good things to move forward on. It's really encouraged them to take more choices and make more decisions. And they are then doing those bits like emailing our careers lead to say what next and where. Could you just move on to my last slide? I'm not going to dwell on this because I am now running out of my 7 minutes, but our next steps there, just continue to build on that. Make sure they know about all these great resources that are out there. And we will continue to use it after COVID as a way of making sure that kids have really good access to quite individualised information that has come out of their need to know more. Can you pop onto the last slide for me, which is the opportunity for questions. Now we've really run out of time, but I suggest that if Julie or Ruth has got an answer just to one question. I've seen quite a lot coming up about Compass. Is there one question you could just pick out to answer now? Hi, Julie.
Sorry,
I think the last question that's come in is a really good question, actually. It's saying, would it be helpful if the hub had set dates when they would review the Compass and evaluate the progress, so head teachers can then align the reviews and calendar with that other hub to avoid misinformation? that was a really good point, Debbie.
Yes,
we do have set dates, Dan. We do publish those in the newsletter that goes out every half term. So for this term, for example, it's the 26th. It's normally the week before the end of the term, but we can also publish the steering group dates as well, if that would be helpful, so that they know when that date is being reported. So yeah, we can definitely do that. It's a really good idea.
Great, that's really useful. And I think, you know, I could see as the questions were flashing up there a number around campus and what it means and how you answer it precisely. Your careers leads might know more about it, but you are now about to get a slide which has contact details. And people are really keen to be talking to heads and making sure you fully understand what's expected and directing you to where it is that you will get the next bit of information. So there's a general inquiries email address. Julie and Ruth's email addresses who've seen talking today. Dan is now going to take over chairing the Hub steering group as I step away this Easter. So again, he's really interested in talking to more heads, knowing what you think, making sure your views are represented on that steering group, where it is a useful bringing together of lots of people. Said we'd take it to 30 minutes, we've done 32, that's not so bad. But I do think, you know, we wanted it to be quick because we know you are busy, but we wanted just to make sure that even if it's left you asking questions, hopefully you're now asking the right questions about what Careers Hub work means, what it means for you at school, and the fact there is a really great resource there just waiting to help you and support those careers leads that I'm sure you all have in place, and just raising the conversation a level actually to make sure it is in the mind of heads and senior leaders as well as whoever is your allocated careers lead. Can I thank you for joining us today? Can I wish you well in this next week you have left of term? As Dan said, you've got lots on your mind other than careers, but don't let it drift completely away. And hopefully some of the information you've got today will certainly give you some things to ask for. I can see lots of people asking for slides, and I'm sure that Julie and Ruth will make sure we get them out to you. But thank you very much, everybody. Enjoy what's left of your evening, enjoy your time up to half term, and thank you again to the Careers Hub folk who've really put this together for us. And thanks
everyone. Take care. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Debbie. Thanks all.